Good morning. I ran today's pocket aces. So I'm under the gun. This is my open raising range. Pretty standard. I get a caller. I'm not going to focus on him. He's a loose player. He's probably calling a pretty wide range of hands, a lot of suited hands. Nothing really strong. He hasn't really 3-bet. So, he could have as high as, ace king. I'm gonna guess aces and kings would have raised, but I mean, who knows? So he called, but player of interest is the big blind. This is only his third hand. I don't have any information on him, but I'm gonna say that a lot of times players play pretty loose. Gonna go something fairly big like this. And the reason is that I remember the hand, so I included at least the hand that he called with on this hand, plus if he called with that hand, then he's probably calling with other hands that are just as weak, but maybe a little bit stronger. So, like an example would be, if he called with, let's say, ace 4 off, I know he's calling with all of these. If he called with, let's say, 7-8 offsuit, he's probably also calling with probably 7-6 offsuit, probably has like Jack 9, possibly the King 9, Queen 9s. If he has these offsuits, and definitely has them in suited, and he probably goes a little bit lower on the suited hands. So he calls. Flop pit, is good for us. Really shouldn't have hit. I mean, it could have hit him, but I definitely have nut advantage. I'd expect both of these to raise with queens. Maybe not this guy, but this player leads into me for one big blind. Very weak, very donk, very weak bet. So here I raised. I feel like that's the right thing to do. I have advantage. A player that's going to bet one like this could be calling. So what could be calling my raise here? What would he call with? What would he do this with? I think top pair, weak pairs. He's betting. He's doing this just to see what do I have. He could even have open ender, so maybe 4-5 that he's doing this with, or like a 5-7, just to see what I do, because sometimes players give up too much. So I raised villain 5 folds. And villain calls. So at this point, he has something. He has some draw. 10 of diamonds comes out. Not the best card that I want, because I'm thinking he could probably donk into me with like a queen 10, queen 9, queen 8 maybe. Not sure about queen jack, but definitely could have hit 2 pairs. So he checks. I bet half pot. He calls. Jack hits again. I don't think this changed. I don't think the jack changes much. I think the 10 changed the hand. So he checks, and at this point, I do think he could probably call with like a queen. But with the jack and the 10 hitting, I think it increases chance that he might have had 2 pairs. So I just checked behind. I'm not sure if this is correct. I'm not sure if my raise is correct. So here's some GTO. I did have to manually go in and add some hands that he's calling with. So I think he is calling with, or he's leading with his donk pair. So when I ran this, it's basically 100% check for him. And of course, he's not playing GTO because he led into me. So I kind of set it up as weak pair plus. I think sets are going to check. I think some of our top pairs, so ace queen, king queen, queen jack, I'm gonna say they would have just check called, or maybe a check raise with that hand strength. I didn't include any sort of draws, get shots, open enders, because while some players could do that with, and I have seen some players do that with, make this play with draws, I think it's a rare situation. So he leads, and it does look like I'm supposed to be raising. It's just such a weak play, and he's doing with weak hands that I should just go ahead and raise, which is what I did. And then villain should be calling with these pairs, these middle pairs, the weak top pair hands. So far it looks like I'm playing pretty good. 10 of diamonds comes out, and now villain is supposed to be betting some of these. He doesn't. He checked, so I can probably go back and say he's going to check 100%. in this scenario, and but then maybe check raise. Kind of hard to say, but if he goes from GTO from that point, he checks, and now I'm betting kings, I'm betting trip queens, I'm betting tens, I'm betting sixes, I'm betting super strong hands, I'm betting my overpair, most of my overpair. I do have the diamond, so I block ace king of diamonds, I block ace jack of diamonds, all of the ace x diamonds hands I block. So I don't think it really matters a whole lot because we're only 2 diamonds out, but it helps a little bit. So I do think betting is going to work, and then villain should be calling. He does have a couple raises. Those are like the queen 10, the 2 pair, the trips that he's raising. He didn't raise, so I don't necessarily think he can have 2 pair. But again, he's not. I don't think he's really playing GTO. So we're gonna have to fix some of these strategies. So now he checks 100%, and I should be betting. I'm definitely betting my straights, my sets, my 2 pairs, my overpairs, except the aces. So kings are betting, but aces do not. So I think, why would that be the case? I think with the kings, we allow him to have the ace queen, the ace jack. Well, I should say the ace jack, the ace 10 hands. Would he have gotten there with it? Not really. Not really. So king queen checks, ace queen checks, ace jack checks, the kings, queens, tens. I think for our 1 pair hand, I think the kings, it comes down to kings versus aces. I guess with aces, if we bet and get check raised, we're going to probably be forced to call. I mean, he shouldn't check raise anything, but why bet kings but not aces? So maybe I just kind of lucked into this with the proper play. But again, why kings? I guess we block king 9. We block all of the king, queen, king, jack, king 10 hands that he could have had. With aces, we don't block those. Aces, we don't block. So maybe it's just a frequency issue. Maybe that is it. So we're looking at betting about 75% of the time, checking 25% of the time, and based on the hands that we have there or have in our range at this point, we can't bet all of our overpairs because we're going to be too unbalanced. That could be as best thing that I have. Or the reason why we bet the kings is if we didn't include one of these overpairs in our range, then we're not betting enough. So it allows villain to call the turn with a slightly wider range, knowing that we're going to be checking too much on the flop or on the river. So, all right, so I think it's looking okay. I think we're going to leave his calls. And then I don't think he's going to bet at all. I think this is all going to be just a check, basically 100% check, and then kind of set up some of his check ranges. There, make it 100% check. And then if we bet, we're gonna have to fix his raises because I think he would only raise with 3 pair or 3 of a kind and 2 pair. So what I'm gonna do is run the solver and we'll come back when we're done. All right, so finished. We still have, he's betting, we're raising, he calls. Now he's checking to us 100% of the time. Now we start having a bit of a mixed strategy here because I'm sure it's because we're guarding against all of the check raises. So if we bet, I do think he's going to be check raising some of the time. What we are going to do is alter these to say his check raise, it's going to be 100% with 3 of a kind, 100% with 2 pair. I think all the rest, top pair is going to call, and then everything else is probably going to be calling. I don't think any of these weak pairs here, 8, 6, 7, 6, are probably going to check raise. So we're going to set those to a call. 8, 6 of clubs. 8, 6 of clubs. We'll leave those. I really don't think he's. I think he's only check raising those hands. So we'll rerun the solver and see if our bet frequency changes. We'll be back. All right, so it finished up here. Does increase our frequency, betting frequency on the turn. We're still betting kings and queens. I think with the aces, we could check some of our aces here, knowing that we would probably check call if he bets with those aces. Yeah, and I think we're protecting our checking range with those aces. I think that's what we're doing. So, but if we do bet, I have him calling those hands, and then he's gonna check 100% or should, and then that leaves me betting most of the time. So it looks like I probably could have gone for some value based on my read of this player, of a lot of these weak players. If he shows up with queen jack, okay, so be it. If he shows up with queen 10, I think that's fine. But I do think if he had the queen 10, I think I would have expected the check raise, and I should have thought about that right on the river. I did think about it on the turn and thought, if I bet and he raises me, he's got trips or 2 pair at that point. And I should have just remembered that on the river and said, look, he didn't check raise me, so he probably doesn't have 2 pair. And really, would he have donked with queen jack? I think queen jack's probably too strong a hand to lead out, or at least too strong a hand for what I see players leading out. So what did he show? He showed queen 9. I took the hand down. So I think that was a pretty decent hand. What happened? What would have changed if this was, let's say, a 4, something that was a little bit more innocuous? So he still checks. Now I'm gonna probably bet, and I'm sure I'm probably betting here because I think any of the queens are gonna call. What if it was a diamond? Let's say it was a 4 diamonds, and he checks. We still bet. We have the ace of diamonds. So we do have that blocker, which I think is pretty good. So I think just we missed a little bit of value on the river. All right, hopefully you like this. If you did, look tomorrow for another.